Ghosts of Tsushima is something entirely new for Sucker Punch Productions. It draws from real-world Japanese history and explores it through the lens of classical samurai cinema. If you watch the State of Play gameplay demo, you'll know there's plenty to sink your sword into, so we spoke to creative director Nate Fox to learn more about the game. Here's a few interesting things about Ghosts of Tsushima that you may not already know. YOJIMBO. Sucker Punch hasn't been shy about talking about its inspirations for Ghosts of Tsushima. As a game inspired by classical samurai fiction and cinema, it'll come as no surprise that the work of acclaimed film director Akira Kurosawa was a key point of reference for the game. Seven Samurai in particular was a major touchstone. However, the idea for the game originally came from a comic book series called Usagi Yojimbo. The series, which began in 1984 and is still going strong, is set in the Edo period and features a rabbit ronin named Miyamoto Usagi, a play on the legendary Miyamoto Musashi. The series features anthropomorphic animals instead of humans, and creative director Nate Fox read it to get a feel for how to write Sly Cooper. He said in an interview with GameSpot, "So, I'm reading Usagi Yojimbo, and it's this big collection of stories about a samurai who wanders feudal Japan, walks into town and uses his wits and the edge of his sword to solve problems. I thought, man, this would be a dynamite thing." And now we have Ghost of Tsushima. Nate said he's also seen the anime version of Rurouni Kenshin, so I've got my fingers crossed for a Hitokiri Tosai Easter egg. Respect the blade. As well as drawing stylistic inspiration from Kurosawa's work, Sucker Punch also looked to other conventions in samurai cinema and tried to work them into Ghost of Tsushima. This includes the swordplay, which is all about quick, lethal strikes instead of whittling away at enemy health bars. The team has also put a lot of effort into the way nature is portrayed, which is why we got a healthy helping of beautiful scenery and animals in the State of Play video. The other thing you may have noticed in the gameplay demo is that after killing the Mongols, main character Jin briefly bows. This is because Sucker Punch is also making sure to represent the respect that is traded between samurai, other swordsmen and peasants. Nate said, "A lot of samurai identity comes very much from samurai film. However, we wanted to do right by providing a feeling of authenticity, and that meant admitting that a bunch of American developers did not know what they were talking about, and drawing in experts from many different fields to teach us what it was like at that time. We have experts on religion, on costume, on motion. We brought them in early and often to review the game. It's those partnerships that give you the feeling of wandering through feudal Japan." Of course, Jin shows respect when he's operating as a samurai and abiding by the samurai code. In the underhanded ghost way of life, however, respect may not come so readily. Wind beneath my wings. One of the cool features that Sucker Punch showed off was how wisps of wind would serve to guide players towards markers and objectives. I asked Nate how they approach making players feel like they're finding things naturally without feeling the invisible hand of someone pushing them. His response was that the wind is just an indicator, and in fact the game is designed to distract you with other things you can choose to pursue. In the State of Play demo, for example, there was a bear mauling someone, and you can choose to get involved in that. You might also come across a group of Mongols raiding a farm, and you can decide whether you want to step in that scenario. Nate actually said that he hopes that players don't always follow the guiding winds, as there's a lot to experience off the beaten path. When you choose to set the wind to go somewhere, that doesn't mean you have to do it. In fact, I would hope that you don't. I would hope that you find yourself looking at a hill and seeing some fire and thinking, well, somebody lit that fire. I don't know if they're a friend or a foe, but somebody's up there. And when you go up there, you're rewarded with content or a secret that makes your curiosity justified. Basically, he's saying you're a wandering samurai, so make sure you wander. Live by the sword. One question I had for Nate was whether Jin's experiences inevitably end in some sort of combat scenario. And while he was careful about not spoiling anything, he indicated that not every problem will be solved by the blade. Sure, there's a fair amount of combat in the game, it's a core gameplay pillar after all, but there's variety beyond that. He said, "There's more to life than just sword fighting in Ghost of Tsushima. There's also a lot of people in need and a lot of ways in which you can serve them. This game, while it tracks Jin's trajectory from the samurai to giving up his identity to become the ghost, there are also characters you'll meet along the way that, if you decide to, you can get invested in their stories and in helping them out. It's part of discovery. The overall mission Jin is on is to drive the Mongols out of Tsushima and save the people, but that isn't always done through burning down shipyards like in the State of Play demo. Sometimes it can be rescuing a kidnapped loved one, finding cherished items lost as people flee danger, or helping people survive by getting them food. Nate described Ghosts of Tsushima as a wartime epic where you get to know a lot of people who are struggling to survive inside a very harsh landscape. Here's hoping the smaller struggles are as impactful as the bigger ones. Samurai CHAMPLOO. The quick sword slices in the demo made me think that the combat had a Batman style counter mechanic, so I asked Nate about that. He confirmed that the game definitely features counters that require you to have the patience and the skill to read what the enemy's going to do and unleash a really devastating counterattack. However, that's not the only way you can play. You can also force the attack and go after an enemy. It's not just a waiting game, but it is a very skill-based experience. It wouldn't be a video game in 2020 without some sort of reference to a From Software game, so here it is. The swordplay is kind of like Sekiro in that enemies unleash lethal attacks. Nate said that this needed to be the case to make it in line with samurai cinema, but also for realism. He said, to feel like those natural samurai movie battles, enemies have to die with a few strokes of a katana. Otherwise it's not a katana, it's a nerf tube. That means that when they hit you with swords, you are also going to die in a few strikes. It's very challenging. Nate mentioned that of course you're going to have a bunch of abilities to give you the edge, and you'll be able to spec out in both samurai and ghost playstyles and switch between them. Also you've got a bow and arrow. It might not be as deadly as some of the explosives that the Mongols have, but it does the trick. True grit. A couple of other things on combat. You may have seen Jin raise his sword at one point. Yes, Jin has a variety of styles he'll be able to use to combat the Mongols. He was raised and taught in a traditional samurai style, but when the Mongols arrive and use weapons that are completely unfamiliar to him, he has to adapt. These stances are the new ways that Jin has come up with to put himself on equal footing with the Mongols. The stances you choose are part of the tactical decision making process. You may also have seen the UI elements at the bottom of the gameplay video and wonder what that stuff represents. Well, the red bar is health naturally, but the golden spheres represent Jin's resolve. He can use them to regain a bit of health, and they're also a representation of the grit he has and needs to pull off the more devastating attacks. There's a risk versus reward element to these attacks, so you have to be thoughtful in using them. And then finally, you may have picked up on the fact that the original Paris Games Week reveal of Tsushima had one-on-one duels, but the State of Play didn't show any of that. Don't worry, they're still in the game, and based on what Nate said about them, they sound like intense, focused duels between two warriors that can be decided in the blink of an eye. A big part of samurai films are duels, he said. It's a classic. It's two highly trained warriors meeting, and it's going to be an apex challenge in the game. There are a number of them in Ghosts of Tsushima where you have to study the person you're dueling, how they attack, how they move, read attacks, counter, and then look for a window. These are the most challenging encounters you have in the game, and it's just one-on-one. So basically, sharpen those reaction times. There you have it, a few cool Ghost of Tsushima facts that we learned from a chat with the game's creative director Nate Fox. If you haven't already seen the gameplay demo from State of Play, check it out on the channel or on GameSpot.com. Otherwise, let me know what your favourite samurai fiction is in the comments below, or find me on Twitter at TamoorH.